Good morning and welcome to the Killik & Co market update. Lots of UK house builders have reported very strong results this week, but there has been a bit of a backlash about how much profit they are making from the Help to Buy scheme. Help to Buy is a government scheme whereby the government gives first-time buyers a 5-year interest-free loan to help them get onto the property ladder. So the buyer would put down a deposit of 5%, the government would then give an interest-free loan worth 20%, and the remaining 75% of the property value would come from a mortgage. The scheme was introduced in 2013, and today most major house builders in the UK rely on the scheme for about 40% of their overall sales. So it really has become a very significant proportion of the UK property market. Persimmon is one particular company that has done very well indeed from the scheme, and at the moment they rely on the scheme for about 50% of their sales. So let's have a look at how their profits have changed over the years since the scheme was first introduced. So this chart here shows the breakdown of Persimmon's costs and also its profits over the last few years. So at the bottom here we have Persimmon's cost of land, and as you can see that hasn't changed a huge amount over the years, and if anything it's actually gone down a little bit. Above that we've got Persimmon's other costs, so for example building costs. They've gone up a little bit over the years but really not by a significant amount. At the top there we've then got the level of profit that Persimmon is making per plot, and that really has increased quite dramatically. So when the scheme came in 2013, profit was about £36,000 per plot. Now it's very close to double that at £71,000 per plot. So a very significant increase in profits there for Persimmon. However, this week the Housing Secretary James Brockenshire has been very critical of Persimmon for the poor quality of the homes that they are producing. And I think this is an issue that is quite widespread across the new build property industry. And James Brockenshire has actually said that he will be reviewing the Help to Buy scheme over the next couple of years, and it may be that Persimmon will no longer be allowed to participate. So if that does happen, it would be very negative news indeed for Persimmon. And this week we've had some very good numbers from the US music industry, which has reported its best year since 2007. And this is largely thanks to the growth in streaming. So companies such as Spotify have been producing large amounts of revenue, and this has been leading to growth in the overall music industry. Let's have a look at how the global industry has changed over the last 2 decades. So as you can see here, back in 1999, the vast majority of music revenue came from physical music sales, so for example CDs. And over the years that has declined very steadily. Then around about 2004 we had the introduction of digital music that doesn't include streaming. So that would be music downloads, for example iTunes downloads. So those were introduced, they did grow a bit, but overall their introduction did appear to be quite short-lived, and now they are quite clearly on the decline again. But what we then had in around about 2010 was quite a notable expansion in the growth of music streaming, so services like Spotify. And over the last couple of years they really have expanded quite quickly. And back in 2015 the global music industry did finally return to growth after several years of decline. We haven't yet got the figures for the full year 2018, but the trend for music streaming here does look fairly clear, and it's definitely something that we are keeping quite a close eye on. And this morning we had an announcement from MSCI, which is one of the major index providers of the world. And they've announced this morning that they will be quadrupling the exposure to Chinese equities within their emerging markets index. And this is quite significant news because it does mean that any emerging markets fund or any tracker fund or any ETF that uses that index, they will have to copy what the index has done and increase their exposure to Chinese equities. So let's have a look at the breakdown of the index as it stands at the moment. As you can see, just over 31% of the index is currently exposed to China, but the vast majority of that is Chinese companies that are listed outside of China. For example, Tencent, which is listed in Hong Kong, and also Alibaba, which trades in the US. At the moment, less than 1% of the index is invested in Chinese shares that actually trade in China. So over the course of the next year, that is set to quadruple. So it does appear on the face of it that this is very good news for domestic Chinese equities. Now, having a look at the week ahead, it's a fairly important one for German stocks, and we're expecting results from Continental, Deutsche Post and Vonovia. That's it from us. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.